This call is like in direct response to our previous caller. So I thought it'd be interesting if we could have this take as well. So we're going to take you really quickly, Cross-Examiner. Oh, Cross-Examiner, by the way, gave a super chat earlier that I need to read. Cross-Examiner, who donated $6.68. I don't know if that's a tax thing or what, but you missed the 666 number and said, great show. Keep up the great work. And thank you so much for giving the super chat for that.
Thank you. No, 668 is the neighbor of the beast, so I didn't want to be
right
on the
same side of the street. I see it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
that's great. Cross-Examiner, what do you got for us?
Well, thanks for taking the call. I did want to respond to the previous caller. I appreciate his points, and I think he made them fairly well, but I found some problems there, and I just wanted to bring them up. First, it was a bit of a straw man. He acted like everybody in the atheist community is demonizing all Christians all the time, and that's just not my experience. I know that my experience is mine and his is his, but on a whole, when you go and you read the literature, it's definitely on the side of the Christians are the ones who tend to be the ones that get into the negative situations much more. And I'm talking about violence at protests and terroristic threats and all of those sorts of things. Not the liberal ones, of course, but you don't see atheists typically doing what he is saying that is happening. Granted, it does happen, but I just wanted to push that back on that point. The next point is, and the more important points are, liberal Christians don't have to be Christians. You can be liberal and not be a Christian. They're making a choice to be a Christian, and doing so gives cover to the vast majority of Christians in this country that are driving this country towards Christian nationalism. So when they check off surveys, when they stand up and say they're a Christian, when they attend church, they give cover to the more conservatives, and they don't have to. They're making a choice to participate in something that they don't have sufficient evidence for. And my third point is they also raise their children to believe this stuff in a liberal way, but they're still, if they're calling themselves Christian, they are teaching their children to believe something, some element, the resurrection of Christ, God, based on insufficient evidence. And all of those things are still things we can criticize liberal Christians for. I still want to reach out, shake their hands, and work with them, but we can't just say, oh, well, I went to church and had a great time. Well, they could have come to you, but they didn't. They made you come to them because they want you in their church. So those are the highlights.
Scott, what do you think?
I think that's an excellent point, Cross-Examiner, and I'm glad you brought it up. I think that the biggest problem with liberal religion is that it does give shelter to extreme religion. Yes, it's awesome that this group is pro-choice and they're in favor of women's rights and they're, et cetera, et cetera. But they, like you said, they still have irrational beliefs, and that's the problem. Because if what you're saying there is that having irrational beliefs is okay, and so then once you've crossed that line, once you've opened that box, then you've opened the door for it gives shelter. And we talk about this all the time on the nonprofits about how we need to stay engaged with the material, with the content that's coming out of these groups. That if you're going to indulge irrational beliefs in your group, then not only does it make it okay for the next group, but it also kind of undercuts any attempts that you might have to criticize, or that they might have to criticize. Have a liberal group criticizing a more extreme group. They kind of lose their teeth if they're going down that road. So I agree with you completely.
Yeah. So it's a difficult topic, because has the atheist community been absolutely toxic about some of this stuff? Absolutely, 100%. I've been publicly broadcasting my face for about 5 years now, and yeah, I've seen it. It's definitely been awful. I think sometimes definitely overgeneralized. Definitely don't take things super charitably, and it sucks to see it. I don't think it's what I want to be represented as. And that's why I'm here, because I want to represent myself, I guess. I want to be able to show what I think about this stuff. But on the flip side of this, right, I think you bring up some good points here, which is that, look, push comes to shove, right? If we think that you believe in something irrational, you believe in something irrational. And if you believe in something irrational, you might come to irrational conclusions. And some of those conclusions are going to end up harming people, right? That's not to say that there's atheists who aren't on their high horse and think all their conclusions are rational and so smart and that they can't be questioned. I see that all the time. But at least there's typically a culture of conversation there, right? Like Christianity, again, we can talk about all the different sects. We can talk about which group does this and which group does that, but doesn't quite have the best track record for open discussion and dialogue. And maybe this is my interpretation and this is your interpretation of it, right? Like there's been very strict hierarchies of interpretation and strict hierarchies of how people should act within the social boundaries of an organization like a church. And the church organization itself can be super harmful, it can be super destructive for the people inside it, as well as have pro-social benefits. So yeah, does it have great things to it? Does it make you feel good when you talk to people who want to do good for the world because they believe in something bigger than themselves? Yeah, I'm not going to deny that. But that does come at a cost, and that's going to come at the cost of not being able to fully admit and come to clear terms with that the values you hold can be held without a God belief. And as soon as you let that go, the more options are going to be open to you to do even more good. If anything, if I became a Christian tomorrow, and one of the reasons why I'm not a Christian today is because I think being a Christian would actually hold me back from being the best person I can be. So, that's just my thoughts on that. But Cross Examiner, we are at the end of today's program. I'll give you the last word here on this call, and then we'll ramp it up. What do you think?
I thank you. You guys do a great job. I agree with everything you said. I think the thrust of it is, yes, obviously people are people, and everybody can be related to on an open basis without hostility and all of that. But I guess my final point about it would be the hashtag not all Christian sentimentality doesn't get us anywhere when we ask, okay, where does the rubber hit the road? Yes, I agree. Not all Christians are like that, but a lot of them are. So that's why we do what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. The ACA, trust me, I would not be doing this show if there were just liberal Christians in the world. Okay. I probably wouldn't care enough, to be honest with you. But we don't live in that world. We live in a world that has other kinds of Christians and not just Christians too. Obviously, this show covers more than just Christianity, but that is like, kind of a big topic that comes up on here and the other shows that the ACA does. So, Cross Examiner, thanks so much for calling in, and thank you again for that super chat. Really awesome to get to talk to you today. Yeah, great conversations overall. And I again, I want to appreciate the other caller for calling in to bring up the topic, because it's one that I don't think gets talked enough about, to be fair. So yeah, well done on that. Scott,
Could I just throw in one more? Could I just make you a liar here, Dan, to slip in something after Cross Examiner's last word? I think what
this is the post-scene credits. This is a Marvel,
exactly right.
Marvel's
extra, free of charge, no additional charge here.
Yeah.
But I think what we're looking at is the difference between the content of a disagreement and possibly a method for remedying that disagreement. I mean, regardless of what we think, we can't argue with the success that of normalization, the success rate that has. We've seen it happen in the LGBTQ community. Obviously, there's still a long way to go in that regard, but 20 years ago, things were very different than they were now. And it's because now people are realizing, I know people in this community, I've interacted with people in this community. And I think we're seeing the same thing happening with the atheist community. As people begin to know, as people get to know atheists and people that believe, that have different beliefs, it's gonna ease that transition as our society matures from a religious society to a post-religious society. And so, so if we can talk about the differences and the distinctions and where we should draw the line and that kind of thing. But if we're looking for a solution to that, if we're looking to remedy that, then, we have to look at things that have a successful track record.
Yeah. Is it great when a church supports the LGBT community? Absolutely. Am I going to donate to that church? Fuck no. I'm not going to donate for the basic level of human decency that you should be giving anyway, right? I don't know if you should be getting extra praise for that.
Right.
You know what
Right.
I mean? Like that, you should be doing that regardless. So, I guess that's another way to put those thoughts
Hooray, you're
there.
not an asshole kind of a
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right? Or less
exactly.
of one, I should say.
Yeah, for sure.